I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Welcome to News du Jour. You may be wondering, why am I, Annie Bowles, here hosting this podcast? I usually start by telling people I'm a political baby. You see, my parents met working on Capitol Hill. By the time I was 2, I had been in my first political commercial and even got lost crawling around the West Wing. Don't worry, Al Gore found me. My family then moved abroad when I was 9, and I attended an international school in Brussels with kids from all over the world. And it is this type of global perspective that I also bring to our show. I graduated from American University in DC after studying political science and art history, as well as interning on both sides of Capitol Hill. I even interned down the hall from where my parents met. I'm now pursuing a professional certificate in journalism at NYU in conjunction with Rolling Stone magazine. I guess I was always that friend in the group who cared deeply about not just what was going on politically, but also globally. I often kept my own friends informed through high school and into young adulthood, so I guess I've always done a version of this show. I'm genuinely passionate about following the news, and I'm here to break it down for you guys every weekday. We always strive to be a calmer space to get your news. Or, as one listener put it, like getting your news from a well-informed bestie. I'm so glad you're here. Hey, you guys. So we have one mini story for you, and then two pretty disturbing stories, especially this first one. It's kind of long and it's definitely disturbing. So without further ado, let's jump into the news. So for our mini story, we reported yesterday that Biden said there would be quote unquote multiple targets hit in response to Iran's attack on U.S. troops in Jordan. Well, now the Iranian regime has said that they would respond to Biden's response. Yeah. They specifically said it would be a, quote, strong response, end quote. Yeah, I hate to laugh at all of this, but does anyone else feel like we're dealing with like little boys on the playground who are like, I'll hit you hard. Well, I'll hit you harder. No, I hit the hardest. Only with like actual lives at stake and like global consequences happening, because this kind of tit for tat language feels both incredibly petty and also incredibly dangerous, to me at least. We'll definitely keep you guys posted on whatever comes next. Okay, and for our first longer story today, I do have to issue a content warning before I even read this headline. This story involves an alleged murder and includes graphic details. Very graphic. Okay, so if you have anybody listening who doesn't want to hear this, now's the time to turn it off. A far-right extremist individual shows his father's decapitated head on a YouTube video. So things are really dark at this point, you guys. I mean, they were before with like the January 6th of it all and the nooses happening there, but this is a new low, in my opinion. A man named Justin Moan was just arrested for allegedly decapitating his father and posting a video with his father's head online. He was arrested in Pennsylvania on Tuesday night and is charged with first-degree murder, abuse of a corpse, and possession of an instrument of crime with intent. So I don't know exactly what that means. I don't know if we have that same type of charge here in Oklahoma, but this is according to Newsweek. This all began when the victim's wife called police to alert them that her husband was missing. So they went to the home of this man's son. I'm not sure who directed them there, whether it was his wife or if they just suspected he might be visiting his son. But when they arrived, the son was nowhere to be found, but the man's dead and decapitated body was discovered in the bathroom of the home. The son had, according to Newsweek, left in his father's vehicle. He was then captured and arrested about 2 hours away. The son had allegedly gone online to post a video with his father's severed head. This video has since been taken down for very obvious reasons, but you may be asking yourself, why on earth would a person do this? Well, he allegedly said on this video, according to sources for the Inquirer, that his father had been a federal employee and is, quote, now in hell for eternity as a traitor to this country, end quote. This line of thinking is incredibly familiar to me because I live in Oklahoma City. It is the same type of thinking that inspired Timothy McVeigh here in Oklahoma City to explode a federal building downtown in an act of domestic terrorism that killed 168 people, including many children. These people are incredibly dangerous. But this man, Justin Moan, went on this video to rant against President Biden and, quote, far left woke mobs, end quote, the Black Lives Matter movement, and the LGBTQ community. He then also ominously called for others to attack federal workers, journalists, and law enforcement. Disturbingly, this is how Justin describes himself on his Amazon sellers page. Quote, his life story is unbelievable, and there may not be enough words to describe him, but one may begin to understand his complexity and experiences through his art. He only wishes to bring positive change to the world. End quote. Yeah, I cannot make this shit up. He authored books entitled The Kingdom of Darkness, They Will Burn This Book, and Poems I Wrote While Stoned. One more book he penned was called The Second Messiah, King of Earth, and he said this book was, quote, loosely based on the life of author and musician Justin Moan, end quote, meaning himself as the second Messiah, King of the Earth. Yeah. He also, again, according to Newsweek, sued the federal government on multiple occasions, seeking more than $10 million from them for allowing him to take out student loans that he seemingly could not pay back. He claimed that he had been a victim of, quote, reverse discrimination, end quote. He then went on to sue Progressive Insurance after working there briefly because he felt he was passed up for promotions for being male. Again, I cannot make this shit up, you guys. His first hearing is actually scheduled for February 8th, which is also the same day that the Supreme Court will be hearing arguments in the Trump case. And actually, you guys, that is my birthday. So I partially think that all this courtroom drama is a gift to me that I get to cover for you guys. That said, I did want to issue my condolences to the family. This would be such a horrific thing to live through, and I'm so sorry for your loss. So next up for today, I wanted to touch on, speaking of dark things, taking place on social media. The leaders of TikTok, Snap, Discord, X, and Meta were called back into Congress to chat about child protections. A contentious set of hearings on Capitol Hill had senators from both parties grilling Mark Zuckerberg and his counterparts at all the other social media platforms, companies, Lindsey Graham even told the companies they had, quote, blood on their hands, end quote. The families of online abuse victims were there, many holding photos of their loved ones up above their heads during the proceedings. Zuckerberg at one point did address the families, saying, quote, I'm sorry for everything you have been through. No one should go through the things your families have suffered, end quote. I'm glad that he at least acknowledged their pain. However, only 2 of these 5 companies being questioned agreed to support the Kids Online Safety Act, also known as KOSA. This bill would require these platforms take quote unquote reasonable measures to prevent harm to young people. X and Snap were the 2 companies that had agreed to support it. The other companies are arguing that the language is too broad, but I almost feel like the language being broad might help them. Anyway, it is definitely something that we need to work on as a society. We know issues like bullying, stalking, harassment, sexual exploitation, disordered eating, self-harm, predatory marketing, and communications all negatively affect young people on social media platforms. And that's not even to mention the addictive qualities of social media and how these companies are intentionally addicting people to their products. Especially because young people, they have brains that are still developing. They don't yet have the tools to deal with a lot of these issues on their own. They don't know where to turn, and thus it harms them more than it would an adult. As I understand it, no real conclusion was reached with these hearings, and the fight for legislation is still ongoing. Europe has passed a lot of legislation to rein in social media platforms in recent years, and yet most of them are from here in the US. I'm hoping the US can catch up soon. And that for today is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "What's in you will spill out of you." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review on that platform or a shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us to be able to keep creating the news du jour and reach more people who need a calmer space to consume the news. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfree media, and that is also linked in our show notes. You can follow us on social media at newsdujour.podcast on both Instagram and TikTok. You can follow my personal account at It's Annie Bowles on both platforms as well. Any little noises you may hear in the background are my rescue pup. He has a little separation anxiety and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour. Broadcasting from Oklahoma.